I want to share some of the key lessons of one of the richest people in the world. Like many of the world's billionaires, they worked at McDonald's, started their business in a garage, and now have taken over the world. I'm talking about Jeff Bezos. So the purpose of this video started with a podcast interview that I watched probably about a year ago now. And Jeff Bezos, we'll call him Jeff from now, has got interviewed and asked, well,
what's going to change in the next 10 years? And that is an interesting question. It's a very common one. I almost never get the question, what's not going to change in the next 10 years?
Because if you as a business owner, a service provider, whether that's in property investment or any other service-led business, that's what you need to focus on. It's much easier to strategize and put together a plan of action based around things that don't change. So I thought, what are some key lessons that we can learn from Jeff and Amazon that we can apply and revolutionize our own businesses? Let's start with customer obsession. So something I've always really liked is a value first mentality. And I think Jeff would describe it as customer obsession. So something that he really focused on is how can it add more value to the customer? So one of the things that he said will never change is people will want things faster and more effectively. And so if you think about the development of Amazon, yes, it's got more products over time, which is good. Maybe more services added in, which is okay. But a huge part of it is the fact that you can click something and it could arrive the same day. Over in America, there's some parts of America where you can click something like a pint of milk and it will get delivered in under an hour. What? How crazy is that? Now, does that make them money? Well, yes and no. See, what they actually found is that the average customer will spend almost double per year if they were a premium user. So they'd lose money actually because people would end up paying whatever it was, $70 for the year, and then get free delivery packaging, and it would be same day, next day, but they'd actually spend almost double. Now, what exactly did that achieve? Because that was a loss-making exercise. Well, what had happened is because of that bargaining power, and this comes on to number 2 in this, which is scalability of business, is the bargaining power allowed them to negotiate more and more with the product providers. And then because we could get it slightly cheaper, and by the way, I mean Amazon could get it slightly cheaper, it becomes slightly more beneficial for the customer. And then because it become a better service and you got more for less, then more and more customers joined the platform and more people use the platform to purchase products, which then allowed them to negotiate even harder because of the scalability, which then improved the service and again and again and again and become this trickle down revenue. And so actually, the way that they did this is they looked at their overall marketing budget, where you might expect a company like that to be spending around 30% of their budget on marketing, and they said, let's scrap a majority of that and instead put it into this Amazon Prime product to improve the service. And the theory around becoming customer obsessed and then scalability, yes, their margins end up shrinking down, but because they become obsessed with their customer become obsessed with them. And so because of that, the law of reciprocity kicked in. They told more and more people, and then what happened is it scaled on its own. How do we dilute this down to us? The everyday guy, if you like, trying to build. If we're building, let's say, a six-figure or multi-six-figure property business, then we want to understand exactly what our customers are looking for. Let's face it, in property, it can feel like a bit of a saturated industry. And it can kind of feel like we're selling the pipe dream every now and then, quit your job in 30 days. And it really gets to me. And actually, what we need to understand is, yes, there's a lot of people in the market. And then therefore, how do we differentiate ourselves? And it's crazy to say this, but just by putting the customer first, that often differentiates you. A key shift that we made in our property business is that we become obsessed with serving them. And how do we serve the customer in the property sourcing business, for example? Well, we become a service provider. Most people in our business just sell the product, find a house, negotiate it a bit, sell it off. But actually, that has a lot of downfalls and it's not very customer centric. And so what you can do is have that longer term mindset and scale by being obsessed with your customer. Now, I've got a property business and that's how I've scaled up to multi-millions. And to give you an idea, my business went from around $250,000 a year, and in a 5-year period, this year, we will end up finishing between £4 and £5 million. That's quite a lot of growth, and I would say the key factor of that is going from a product to a service and becoming obsessed with the customer. I feel I covered 3 there, but I really want to nail down the third one, which is having a long-term vision over short-term profits. I really do think this is an underrated piece of advice that I wish I could have taken on sooner, okay? So for those of you that want to get into property sourcing, you're going to get your education sorted, you're going to find your mentor, you're going to double down. And in your first couple of years, the obsession is to get to 10 grand a month. Okay, that's the big one. And it's 10 grand a month profit. And then so when people think about that, they're like, right, what is the least amount of revenue against the profit I can make? So it's how can I make as much profit for my effort? And this actually links to scaling as well, but also thinking about what your vision is. Now, if all you're looking for is 100 grand in a year, that's actually not too difficult. And maybe some of this stuff, like the longer term vision, you think doesn't time with you, but I promise you it does. Okay. Now, the thing is, 100 grand a year, fine, not really that difficult in the grand scheme of things. I'm not saying it's easy either, by the way. But the issue is you'll constantly be working for that 100k a year. It is so much more simple over a 10-year period, let's say, even a 5-year period, to get to $250,000 a year and hire some people to keep that running so you can have your 100k profit with other people doing the work. So how does this link back? When you're having a focus on the long term and longevity of the business, you stop obsessing as much about the profit margins and you start reinvesting into the long-term value of your team and, of course, your customers. So when I used to sell the product, i.e. the house, and I would source a great investment for somebody, they would buy it and then they crack on with everything else. That's great. You can make a lot of money. We actually made about $1 million a year. We got that too. But really, getting from $250,000 upwards, starting that shift into the service. So the downside of that is, who is the customer that can actually buy that? Well, the reality is the customer that can buy that property is somebody that's got educated themselves. They're maybe a sort of mediocre or an average, decent investor, and they've got the ability to do all of that work. Well, that narrows down my pool to quite a small slice of the pie there, which is fine, but not for where I want to scale to. Whereas now, by being a service provider and reinvesting and building up the team, the infrastructure, the technology, it now means that the type of person that I can work with in my sourcing business is somebody that has money and wants to make money from their money, which is a lot more people. And so often it's, how do I get other people to do this for me? So by shifting that focus, reinvesting and scaling up, you can add so much more value. Now, if you're a business owner and you're looking to get into building a property business, I might be able to help you. I actually run an education business. If you want to have a chat one-to-one with me or my team about how we can help you get involved in property as a business, put education in the comments. I'll send you a link and we can book in a one-to-one chat. Here's a big one I love, the sexiest of every tip. Data. Ooh. Why did I do that? Ooh. Data-driven decision-making. I think this is absolutely key. So a lot of the big businesses do this. They often think of themselves as a business they're not. So for example, Google is obviously a data business. McDonald's is a real estate business. Amazon, a tech business. Okay, it's an information business. It's a B2B business, actually. When you think about the amount of data that they have, it's so empowering. Let me give you an extreme example of Amazon. So I actually had a friend who rubbed legs for a living, as he would say. He was a physio, and actually he was hired by Amazon at one point for the warehouse workers. Now, I'm not saying this is right, by the way, because it seems very extreme. But what they realized is they needed a level of efficiency in the factory workers. Before all the robots did a lot of this, they'd be running around packing long hours and things like that, and they would have an on-site physio. Okay, so they would be tracking how long each worker took to get a package boxed up and put in. And genuinely, it would be like you've got a red light on you, a green light on you. If you stood still for too long, it would go red on you. It would beep. If you've got 3 beeps, a manager would go out and find out if something's wrong. Sounds a bit extreme, right? But the other thing that took that to a new level is if they started slowing down too much, the manager would go to them and go, what's the problem? My legs are hurting. No worries, get in with the physio now. And the physio would be there and do that. Now, I am not condoning that level of whipping of employees, because I do not think that is a good way of retaining your best customers, which are your team. But ultimately, what I love about that is the amount of data. Now, how does that compare to the data of their customers? Well, for example, knowing that you could lose on Amazon Prime but still make more money over the long term from getting more customers in, referrals, recommendations. I mean, who hasn't used Amazon? Can you genuinely think of anyone that hasn't used Amazon for anything? It's very, very unlikely, especially the customers they would want, the people that spend money. And so by understanding the level of speed needed in delivery and how much that got return customers, they could end up spending more and more resource in that area. So how do we relate this to a service-based business? For me, that would be property. Well, I track 7 things, and that is ACE and LAPS. ACE is the marketing, LAPS is the sales. ACE stands for awareness, communication, extraction. LAPS, lead, appointment, proposal, sell. This is my favorite one. The reason it's my favorite is everyone can do it. It's what you will see within Amazon and, of course, McDonald's. I don't know if you've watched the film The Founder. If not, I really recommend it. And something I remember from that film is that he was watching McDonald's workers in this one McDonald's, and then he was watching people move around, and it was moving the plate from there to there. Then they would go that, and he got masking tape on, and he got it going around. And the average burger takes 18 seconds. Flip it that way. Now, say what you will of McDonald's, I would say it's pretty shit, but it's consistently shit. And that's the key thing to business, is that you know what you're getting. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. If you go to Eastern culture, very different foods and things like that, but you'll still find a lot of tourists going to a McDonald's. And in many ways, you're like, what? Why would you go to, say, Thailand and then go McDonald's? That's what I need. Because people seek familiarity. And the more consistency you can have in your product or service, the more money you will make. And if you get consistent, you get better. You get more systemized, you get more automated. And you no longer need to innovate the facilitation of the business. You can focus on innovation in your marketing, how you convert, how you attract people. But it's also how you can scale more effectively, because people can come in, understand your blueprints that you have for success, and then you can start making more money. I want to wrap up with understanding blueprints for success. I genuinely think that's something I've nailed in business, is how you can go from 0 to 100 grand to 1 million and beyond. We're about to track for our first £10 million year as a group, which I'm really excited by. But I know how to get people from brand new in property as a property business to 100K within 12 months. And I know that's a big claim, but if you want to actually learn how to do that and have a chat, put education in the chat, I'd love to have a chat with you. It'd be me or one of my team to talk through the details of how we can get you from A to B and give you the detail of how you can implement it yourself. And if you want support doing that, that would be amazing too. So put education in. If you're new to the channel, you know what to do. Hit the subscribe and the notification bell. I've got a load more content coming up around business, mindset, and of course, property investment. If you got value from the video, hit the like button, and I'll see you in the next one.